Hey everybody, welcome to Couch Chats. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are all having this meeting today, tuning in on Aboriginal land all across the country. Right now, I'm on direct land. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. Well, I'm very, very excited about what we have in offer today for this Couch Chat series. Today, we'll be talking to a very incredible guy that really came to our Instagram feeds, our Facebook feeds, even on the TV. In relation to some really heroic stuff he did back in our back in the horrific bushfire season just this last summer. And of course, we are talking about Kai Wild, who helped rescue so many poor, burned, injured koalas from Kangaroo Island over a 7-week period, basically from January to February. So. Is Kai with us yet?
Hello, I am with you. Hey, Kate. Nice to see you again.
Yeah,
all right.
Oh, excellent. So, Kai, last time I actually saw Kai in person, last time I saw you in person was we were up north. I was basically, it was Kalang Headwaters, right? And you
Correct.
were, say what you were doing?
So, yeah, I spent a couple of months just setting up a tree occupation with the local community up there that opposed logging in the area to protect.
Yeah, well, I think you're not very good at blowing your own trumpet, because basically you set up all of these, what do you call them even? What do you call the ropes and the pulley systems, and when you climb the trees with all those, is there a word?
I mean, there's lots of words. We set up a couple of tree platforms, and they were joined by a tight line that you could zip between the two.
Yes.
The occupations and
yeah. So that's right. So there was these beautiful, beautiful big trees. We were kind of knowing though that the logging trucks were coming in any day.
Yeah.
I went to see a community, basically the activists who had blockaded an area. And they were saying to me, "Oh, you've got to meet this guy. You've got to meet Kai. He's been doing this incredible stuff in the trees. You and Ruby were there, and they were flitting around and basically had set up a platform so that if the loggers came, they wouldn't be able to get in. So well done, classic kind of beautiful forest activist stuff that we love so much. And you know what? Somebody's got to do it. I'm not going to do it. That would just freak me out, and I would just shake and freeze and just go, somebody get me down. But good for you.
Thanks.
Good for you. Before we kick things off, I just wanted to check that everybody who has tuned in, so thank you so much everyone for joining us. We've got people who have come zoomed in basically with our webinar, and then there's a bunch more on Facebook live feed. So you can connect with us either way. This is going to be hopefully a really engaging session. Well, it will be, and you'll be able to ask your questions either in the Q&A box if you're in the Zoom, or via the Facebook, right? So you know how to comment and ask questions on Facebook. So what we will do is just kind of really, let's see if we can answer some questions as we go through. I'm sure a lot of you have some burning questions for this guy, who basically, as I understand it, you are a qualified arborist, you're an SES volunteer, range of other things. You, after I saw you in that tree sit last year, you basically saw the state of what was happening in terms of our precious native animals as a result of the bushfires. We all know that, how devastating it was. You said, I've got these skills, I've got to help, I think I can put them to good use. And essentially you went to KI, which is Kangaroo Island, which is what we will talk about. And we'll get to your story, which I'm very interested in throughout this session. So if you're wanting to kick things off, why don't I'll throw it to you, Kai Wild, to tell us just a bit about your experience and stuff. And I think you've got some photos and maps for us with a bit of a presentation.
Awesome. Yeah, I just tried to put together a few photos for everyone, just to help explain things. So I'm just going to try and share my screen now.
Koala photos. It's like you can't do a presentation on what you've just been through without some photos. I'm sure there's some beautiful photos and probably some sad ones too. But that's the story.
I also can't go wrong, which is really good.
Yeah.
Photos.
Beautiful.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's pretty amazing ear fluff right there. Okay. So yeah, as Kate said, I went to Kangaroo Island. It was the 30th of January, and I just decided to drive there because, yeah, just to have that mobility of my ute and that flexibility it gives, I guess. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be there for a week or for 2 weeks or 7, as it happened. Okay, so that doesn't work. Let's try this.
You do like arrow down or something?
Oh yeah, there. Okay. So, this just shows the area that was burnt. So 2/3 of Kangaroo Island was affected by the 2 bushfires, one on the 3rd and one on the 9th of January, that were started by lightning strikes in the national park to the far west of the island. And if you just kind of keep your eyes in the center of that burnt area, and this next slide, you can see there's a lot of farmland there. That's the kind of yellow, and there's all like the national park there, the red and the green on the west, the Flinders Chase National Park. And then you've got all these green boxes, and those green boxes are the blue gum plantations that are privately owned, and that's where my work and the bulk of the koala rescue work took place.
Like I'll jump in there, which is interesting itself in terms of koala conservation, because we often talk about public native forests, but you rescued like so many in plantations, like native forest plantations, which we know are going to be logged at some stage. So that's another another battle really to talk about. So yeah, keep going. And I will say, actually, I've been to Kangaroo Island as well a couple of times, and it is extraordinary. And of course, there are just little native animals wandering around everywhere, and it's such a tragedy how much fire ripped through there.
Absolutely. And so when I focus, or when I talk about all like these koalas that are in these plantations, like, you know, I'm not talking about all the wildlife and koalas and everything that was outside of that in this native vegetation that was so crucial. But I don't want to dismiss that either, but it just didn't really form my experience there. That's all.
Interesting.
So yeah, all these green boxes, you know, blue gum plantations, essentially full of koalas, which, you know, is crazy, but it's how it was. And so when I got to Kangaroo Island, it was 3 weeks after the fires, and the initial fallout was just like, I wasn't there for that, and it was, you know, a complete nightmare for everyone there, and just incredible that anyone was kind of, I think, just functioning as like a normal human at all. And, you know, Sam and Dana, who run the wildlife park, whose home became the koala hospital, you know, were taking in hundreds of, you know, critically injured koalas and other wildlife. So just kind of shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so just if you look, can you see my mouse cursor?
Yeah, yep.
Oh, sweet. All right, so all right, where I'm hovering there, that, just keep an eye there. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. It zoomed in. So that box that's what it looks like. And then if you just look at this little green highlighted mark, that's what it looks like from the air in real terms. So yeah, you can see how, there's different severities of burn, and then you've got these little islands of green, which, you know, became refuges for for koalas, and they're either just, you know, lucky to happen to be in those trees, or they would have found those trees and that's the remaining food.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, what else to say about that? Just,
Well, that's like, that was one of the reasons, right? Like in terms of the starving koalas, if they weren't burnt, they didn't die, you have a look at that. And even as I spoke with a bunch of different koala experts here in New South Wales in terms of the New South Wales fires, and there was basically, there's no nutrients and no moisture. There's no moisture left in those leaves anyway.
yeah.
So they're so dried out, but actually the drought was also contributing to the lack of nutrients and moisture in eucalyptus leaves before the fires. And wildlife rescuers were actually, yes, the Port Macquarie Koala Hospital has talked to us about the fact that the koalas that were coming in before the fires were coming in because they were malnourished, because out, you know, the lack of water in the leaves had basically left them with they just weren't getting the nutrients, and they were really dehydrated. So you know, then they had the bloody fires as well. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we, like, something on this scale has never happened, and there was just nothing to go by. And even
do you want to just stop sharing your screen for a second? Just because, just stop. I reckon just stop. Let's go to you.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Keep talking and then we'll get back to your screen. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, just lots of unknowns. We didn't know how long those green patches would sustain the koalas that were there. And we didn't actually know if the regrowth that was initially coming out was too toxic for them to actually eat, and if that was creating problems for them. Yes. And we didn't know when that regrowth was going to come either. And, you know, quite incredibly, the second day I was there was like the heaviest rain that Kangaroo Island, and most substantial rain that the island had in years and years. And
wow.
Yeah, so luckily there was a bit of rain.
But often the heavy rain can lead to all the ash and not great as well if it's so heavy after really severe fires.
Yeah.
If that's an issue, I don't know, but it has been here, of course, in New South Wales.
Totally. Yeah, if the landscape is different, I guess it's,
And just to check in, actually, because I said here in New South Wales, let's tell people where you're sitting right now. You're in Sydney.
I'm in Sydney.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Where are you in Sydney? Tell us where you are, and you're beautiful. Look at all your plants and
my housemate's plants. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I can't claim those. All right, I'm going to go back and try and share my...
Let's see what's next.
All right, how do we do this? Here we go. Okay, so next. Yeah, so just like looking at it from the ground, just so people can have an idea of what it was like, I guess. So, you know, there's all these 50 or so plantations in a pretty similar state to this. And it's really just by driving around and getting around on foot and just you like seeing for yourself what's there. And I guess I tried to take a step back a bit, and I just got around and checked out the island and checked out how many koalas were in each section of green, and tried to create some kind of system to follow.
Yep. Gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty desperate.
Well, at least with when you look in terms of but you can see that like if you go into a forest that isn't planted in rows like that, like a monoculture, it's harder to spot koalas, isn't it? Like at least here, would it? Yeah.
I think definitely
easy, but it's
I think your eyes get used to it as well, and there's patterns, and I mean like just all the burnt foliage makes it. So it did become a lot easier to spot them, for sure. And so that's a view from just in a tree. And
I do have a question from Les live. Thanks, Les. Thanks for tuning in. Who has asked whether they're Tasmanian blue gums? Do you know? Do you know
Uh,
what the trees are? We're putting you on the spot here.
yeah, nah. But um, I, my understanding is that like the Tassie blue gum is like the most common, yeah, commonly exported tree in the world.
Well, potentially it is, but they burnt. They sure burn.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
Shit.
so people are keen to get into the koala rescue. I'm thinking, judging by some of these questions that are coming through.
Yeah. Ah. Ah.
Oh,
No, there's only two. Sorry. Um.
no, there are more. Keep going, but
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just a warning. Yeah, this has got some pretty. Yeah.
so obviously, let's just pause there for a second.
Yeah.
Actually, so you're kind of coming into basically these forests. You're for every like we saw on Instagram, particularly, which I kind of I think started seeing some of your early stuff that just grew and grew and grew, and then just thought, oh my God, Kai's like got these incredible pictures and stories of and these journeys that you're going on, as well as the koalas,
Yeah.
the journeys of all these little koalas. But for for the koalas we saw, I'm sure you saw kind of some pretty horrific stuff too,
Sure.
that you
Yeah.
didn't post.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There's
you
I
don't have to describe what you
no.
saw and stuff. I just
I
wanted
won't do
to,
that now.
no,
But
just checking in terms of wildlife carers, and
yeah.
rescuers. Just it's such a full-on thing.
Yeah.
Hats off to you and everyone who does it.
Yeah.
It's what you must witness,
Yeah.
and the trauma really from something like last season must be pretty full on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, like, I wouldn't share the most kind of traumatic stuff because I think it would pretty much just traumatize people that don't need that in their life right now. No, I
Yeah.
guess I would like, yeah, luckily, I already have someone that I see for counseling, just because, you go through shit in life and rough patches. And
Yeah.
so um, really funnily, she actually saw my Facebook post as well because
Oh wow.
I know a friend shared something, and she got in touch and just offered to give me, yeah, some free sessions,
Oh,
and that was really really wonderful. And I think I kept learning just in this like really intense time that like I was so lucky that I had done that, or like all those years ago, or so lucky that I'd started doing that, or have this friendship, or that me and this person really have been through this and trust each other, and then can work together in this really full-on environment. And yeah, again, like, it was just so good that I had this person that I'd already seen for counseling and had this idea of who I was and what was normal for me, and who could just offer me some support, like.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so yeah, that was really good. And yeah, definitely, obviously I think everyone should just have that person, like a professional kind of separate person who's just on your side and on your team to help you be okay.
And
Yeah.
also, I think one of the really powerful things in terms of your story and what you put on Instagram, and socials, you weren't afraid to kind of share, because I think that story was really important to tell the world about just how devastating these fires were to our wildlife. And I know you're an activist, I know you're environmentalist, conservationist, of course, that's why you're up that bloody tree when I met you. I know you're a climate campaigner, but to be able to, I think that type of kind of grief, I suppose, and a real personal emotional journey can help, it can kind of spread and go viral and tell a story that so many other images and stuff can't. So hats off to you. It's a really brave thing to do, Kai. Really brave thing to do, but so powerful. Like, and it
Yeah.
must clearly, like, it was traumatic, but maybe it was also ultimately, are you glad you kind of posted all those things you posted? Was it a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yeah, it's funny. Like I wanted to obviously just, it was therapeutic for me to share that. And I think it was able, like all these other people that are experiencing all this grief over what had just happened as well, could, I guess, somehow share in that. I don't really understand exactly how, but it happened. And I guess there's also being mindful that other people have other ways of coping as well. And some people just, and I really understand that too now, is just like to get through some like periods that are just so bad that they have to shut off as well. And sometimes I guess for me, if I'm like, oh, really, really emotional, that can be quite hard for those people who are just like have to shut off. And so
Yeah.
I guess I'm really mindful of that, and I totally appreciate that.
Should we go to the koalas? I go back to the koalas, but I do, I think that you are, potentially representing, like pretty much in terms of being able to speak about this, wildlife carers, rescuers. This last summer, of course, I think many of them, if you're tuning in and you are a wildlife carer or rescuer, there is potential for probably a fair bit of PTSD, I would say. And I'm not a mental health, professional, but, wow. Okay, definitely. So having said that, we're about to go do like one or two images I've seen, and they're not the worst, but then we'll move on to cute rescued ones, yeah?
Yeah, we'll get
yeah.
finish on that anyway.
Okay, let's go back.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess this is some of what we come across, and like for me, like this was actually like kind of the worst thing, almost like, or the what I was really afraid of finding, which was kind of like a koala that it might have been smoke inhalation, it could have been starvation, but just this perfect koala that probably died since I'd got there and since I'd been trying to find them, and that was pretty hard.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And then just these next ones, just to kind of give people an idea, like, and sorry if this is a bit full on, but these are infections that have stemmed from burns, and infections that can go straight in, like all the way into the bones, and it's just to rehabilitate from that is,
and just to give people people who might be thinking, oh my God, I can't stand this, I'm going to turn off. There's just one more image, and it's not the it's not absolutely awful.
I'll flick through.
We're done, right? Bam. Yeah. I am one of those people. That there's going to be an animal cruelty or something thing. I have to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just flick back here. So we were finding those koalas with those injuries like weeks and even months after the fires.
Do you want to go into, because I'm keen to get to, talk to us about what happens in terms of rescuing those koalas.
Okay.
The ones that you have found, like people are some questions around, how the koalas, how you're kind of going, whether the koalas, let me go back to what some of these questions, there's some around, so Sally, thanks for joining us. Sally's asking, did the koalas allow you to approach them easily? Because clearly they would have been pretty distressed. I think the video I've seen, they're like, get away from me, who are you, what are you?
Yeah.
So do you want to, do you have any images or whatever, pics of that as we
I can check through,
because I think I posted one on my Facebook page today of a video that you did with the grabbing like the little the little koala. Actually, so what's going on here? This is where you map out.
So we just like put together this kind of rescue kind of headquarter type situation where just a massive, it was quite simple, obviously, like just a massive map of all the plantations, and then we had a spreadsheet and we split into different search areas, and this is just kind of as Humane Society International came down,
Yeah.
back down, and then we had like the local wildlife network,
Yeah.
volunteers, like, and then, you know, Freya and I, and that was the search team kind of, at structure. And so just as like this kind of real community level
Yeah.
response.
Like, total shout out to everybody, like all the like incredible people, both from the island and off the island, and the NGOs, both international and local and state, and that helped out. You mentioned HSI, fabulous. I know there were so many organisations that put in incredible. Yeah.
And that was, maybe I can, that was one thing that really struck me, just coming in and seeing just all the different organizations, all these different individuals, coming from everywhere, all different backgrounds, beliefs, and just pulling together and like, you know, the Australian Defence Force, like all these different groups, you know, to help out koalas. So
was there a like with the, so I'm thinking like how you kind of coped over those weeks. Like I can imagine there would have been a sense of like, it's like when you're working on something and you know that there's so much to do, and at the end of the day you've got through like 3% of it because there's so much that, for example, you know, big campaigns on logging or climate, and you know that there's things. Was it the same with rescuing the koalas? Because at the end of, I'm assuming, like the night would fall, particularly in the beginning, or even, you know, you'd probably be getting more desperate and frustrated and stressed, wanting to get out there and save more and more and more and more, knowing you would never get them all. Like,
I guess, there was times where I'd only get like part way driving around, checking on the plantations. And then, I would find a bunch of koalas that would need help. And then that would take all my time, and I would know, and that would just continue to happen. And just slowly, it'd end up being like a week before I ever got back to that one place where I saw that koala again.
Well, let's talk about koala, like that koala, because I know you developed a relationship with the, you know, some of them, but particularly one. So let's get to where you talk about that little Joey namesake of yours. Let's go there.
Let's go there. I'll go via like rescuing, because we didn't talk about that. Okay, so I'm just going to go quickly. Like, I did not have anything to do with this helicopter. It was, but Sam like organized it. This is like, you know, state of the art thermal imaging technology, and I think it's. I guess it's got it's good, but it's got its limitations as well. You know, just because it's really high tech and expensive doesn't mean it's like going to solve everything. But I think that's the learning from that. And then this is Douglas Thron, who's a drone cinematographer. He's from California. He's over and actually in Australia right now, kind of figuring out whether this kind of technology is good for like finding wildlife and in forests and using it as a way to count wildlife populations. And so we went out a few times, and that's that little blob there, for example, that's a koala.
Wow.
So
to be honest, I feel like it's easier finding them when you're walking on the ground, because they're also little blobs, but they're
and so like this is really state-of-the-art technology again, but like it's definitely got its place, and there's definitely limitations. And when you've got this massive scale and
okay, let's keep
going. This was we got sent this satellite imagery of the what was burnt and what wasn't, from an organization called the Office of Planetary Observations. And so there's groups out there, you know, that have like this so if you combine this information with a thermal helicopter, for example, at the beginning of a rescue effort, I think, like,
Yes.
and then you got out there on foot with a koala dog, like, whoa,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
So this is just 2 photos of Freya. So yeah, this is one of those examples where, you know, thank goodness that I've worked with Freya, you know, in really intense situations, climbing for the last 7 years, and we've just built this trust. And yeah, and this is the first time she's ever worked with koalas, and so this was the first time I've ever taught anyone to do this. And,
Wow.
and so
I mean, look at a second photo, how high up in the tree, and also because that looks, you don't know how burnt that tree is, or you would know, right, in terms of its structure, I'm assuming.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely adds like a new dimension of risk for sure, and like unknown quantities really once they've been burnt. And you know, we did, yeah, there was a lot of trees that we'd come across where, you know, their root plates had failed completely, or like they just snapped halfway up. And yeah, there's an element of risk for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep going. We've got a bunch of questions that are coming in as well. I might just go through a few of them. So what sort of, keep going. So quickly, have you done, so what sort of first aid did you do? Is from Stephen, and what aids, etc. So is that, I'm not sure whether that's for the koalas or for...
Yeah, so I wouldn't personally administer anything. I would just get them to the hospital as soon as possible.
You had care, you had people down on the ground mostly as well anyway, didn't you, often?
Yep. So yeah.
There's another question that's come in around thanks Eleanor for sending this one. What percentage of rescued koalas need to be euthanized immediately or in the next few days after rescue? Oh, this is a terrible question. As in good question, but it's true.
Good question. I didn't actually keep like account of that, but certainly, yeah, there was a bunch of them that, you know, you would essentially, you it's horrible to stress them out and put them through this, and then only for them to be euthanized. And that's something that I kind of really struggle with still, and I think I will, for the rest of my life, always struggle with that.
But like but they would have died a slow, painful death, right? Over many weeks, starving, in pain. So you actually, you saved them from that awful death. While there is the stress, but to be honest, it was the most compassionate, you know, thing to do for those poor animals.
Yeah.
Okay, what have we got now? Yeah, what have we got now?
What do we got?
Oh, who's this one?
Oh, yeah, well, this is Joey Kai.
Yeah.
So this is the...
Talk about Joey Kai. Talk about
okay, so maybe it was about a week or less into my time on Kangaroo Island, and I was just like, it was peak trauma. Freya hadn't come over from New Zealand yet, and I was, it was pretty horrific time. And just again, walking through these just, desolate kind of burnt plantations. And she was the first orphan Joey that I came across that had been burnt. And just, I don't know, that going into your brain in that situation is just like really full on thing to happen, I guess. And just the process of getting her out of the tree, you know, putting her at risk of that in that process, putting that stress. And I assumed by seeing her in that tree that, you know, she would just be one of those koalas that, you know, I took in and would be euthanized. And that's, so that's how I was feeling at the time. And then to kind of get her in there, and then, you know, the vets checked her and they found a big tick on her face, and then also found that, you know, she was, you know, looked okay and would be okay. And so that was an incredible experience as well, that just really, it's hard to explain that. But and then I just kind of really attached all my pinned my hopes on her the whole time, and there was no room for any other koalas, I guess. And so this is her, like, so just in like this very small space inside, just sitting on the ground, I guess, recovering, getting that energy back. And that was like probably a couple of weeks of that. And, like I would just sneak her in extra foliage and
Right. So she
yeah,
got all the treats.
you got treats. And this is her, so her first night out, outside, like in a small enclosure again by herself. She was always by herself because she had too much attitude and would just like not be able, she just, yeah, too much sass and gave other koalas a hard time. But yeah, after her first night out, apparently she was too cold, so they brought her inside for the day
Oh.
and warmed her up. And then this is her weeks into, well, yeah, weeks into her recovery, but this is the first time she sat back in a perch,
Wow.
or on a branch. So that was a really significant milestone for me because, yeah, you just don't know, yeah, how they're going to go.
Yeah.
And that's about a week ago on
Aw.
World Koala Day, and you can just see like her ears will always kind of be funny and burnt like that. That'll never get fluffy, but yeah, her coat's recovering, so it'll be waterproof soon. And she's got,
Amazing.
hey,
Amazing. So I'm going
yeah,
to jump in because you know why? Because there are people who have so many questions. I want to make sure we get to some of them. So no, they're really good questions. So one person is asking, actually, this is a good one from Eleanor again, actually. Just have you been contacted by other arborists who want to be involved in similar responses in the future?
Yep, I have.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, good.
I guess.
Hi.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
No, just I guess for me, if people are interested in getting into this stuff, it's like, yeah, you can be an arborist, but you also have to have that wildlife experience, and you also have to have a bit of emergency service experience, and yeah, like
Absolutely.
spend years getting all that experience so you can really work effectively in high traumatic, high stress environments.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Great. We need more people like you. We need more Kais. This one is from Brett. Hi, Kai, you're awesome. How did you come across the idea of clothes baskets as the best way to temporarily house koalas until they were back to base?
That was what they were doing.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. Hey, they were doing it everywhere, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look. So chats are going crazy. Actually, we have only got like say 10 minutes or so. We might go a little bit over with this one, but because Dave, thank you, Dave, for putting this in, because we did want to also talk about the threats that, of course, koalas. I talked about climate change and kind of drought before the fires.
Yep.
And of course, you know, as I said, you were sitting in a tree sit, trying to basically have, you know, this, to trying to save trees from logging. But Dave has reminded us that logging started yesterday in unburnt koala habitat in Nambucca State Forest, which, for those of you, I noticed somebody tuned in before from Italy, so I think we've got an international audience as well, which is excellent. And, some people from not New South Wales. Nambucca is on the mid-north coast here in New South Wales. Beautiful public native forest. Like, what? You know, you go to all this effort, the world watches, you know, us rescuing koalas, saving native animals from fires, and their hearts pour out and their dollars pour out. And then the government here in New South Wales is like logging their habitat. How does that make you feel? Like, what do you think people can do about this?
Yeah, pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, pretty angry.
Actually, one thing straight away is we're going to put in the comments just while you're petition to a proposal for a great koala national park. Sign on to that. This is a massively amazing proposal, which you probably know a little bit about, Kai, because that's the part of the world I saw you in, right? That Great Koala National Park area.
Yeah, that forest that was what we were trying to protect with that tree sit. That still hasn't been logged. I think they still want to, but it survived the fires. And, you know, we spend that whole time protecting it because there's healthy koalas populations in that forest. So, yeah, it's hugely significant there. And that forest would form part of the Great Koala National Park. And so would forests like the Lower Bucka, where they're currently logging as well, where there's koalas. and the same with Nambucca, which they've just started logging as well. And, you know, these are forests that incredibly special just because they haven't burnt. Like the diversity that they hold is incredible. And
yes, totally. Like,
yeah,
so that's a massive one, is that
yeah,
like everybody's kind of caring and rescuing, you know, the individual koalas, the individual animals, because we, you know, just we can't bear the thought in some ways of a you know, poor little animal, our beautiful native animals suffering, yet we are having swathes of our public native forest clear felled and clearly wiping out a heap of animals every time. We know as well there was so much habitat that was burnt. We know we lost, Susan Lee says, you know, 30%, she's a federal environment minister, up to 30% of koalas. I chair in New South Wales, I chair an inquiry into koalas here in New South Wales, which is due to report in a month's time. And I tell you what, the things that we're hearing in that inquiry in relation to how much habitat's being lost, how many koalas potentially are being lost locally, is up to 60 to 80%, people are saying. Some people have said 90% in localised areas around, for example, Port Macquarie. So it's absolutely devastating, yet our government's doing this. So everybody who's tuned in today, because you love the work Kai did, you love koalas, if you're not involved in a logging campaign, if you haven't kind of signed up to do everything you can, if you haven't talked about it all the time on social media, please sign the petition, get involved, and we're going to start doing some really good virtual protests too. Kai, I did just want to, because I want to just delve a tiny little bit, can you tell us quickly how you actually got to be the person that is like climbing trees in Kangaroo Island? Like, what's your backstory? How did you get there?
Oh, I'm going to try really hard. So, long story, it's convoluted. 2010, just became passionate about wildlife, studied native animal rehabilitation, studied conservation and land management. That led to placements at wildlife hospitals, and that's when I helped rehabilitate koalas for the first time. And that is just that was a pivotal kind of experience. And I learned not just with koalas and rehabilitation, but actually in terms of conservation and environmentalism. And when you see koalas getting hit by cars, attacked by dogs, getting chlamydia, it's all because they're losing their habitat. And then you spend all these countless hours and resources rehabilitating them to put them back into that environment that they just came from, that you created. And then this cycle, it doesn't make any sense. And so it makes complete sense then to actually try and solve the root cause of the problem, which is the loss of habitat. And now what that means, is trying to do something like climate justice, because you could spend your whole lifetime protecting a single habitat, and then climate change will create the conditions for bushfires to wipe everything out that you've spent your life trying to protect. And so, but going back a second, I guess I went on this journey from that moment where I had that experience with koalas, where I kind of got involved in activism, and but I also got involved and helped out with a koala research project where I saw people climbing. I saw Greenpeace climbers climbing, and I ended up meeting people and joining the Greenpeace Australia climb team, getting into climbing more and more, and decided I'd become an arborist because some of my friends who were just really effective forest campaigners were arborists because they had that flexibility. It's like a well-paying job, and they can get up trees and get up buildings, and I love trees as well. And so I did that, and I guess that
amazing. So
paid off.
Yeah. So I don't know, always assuming that the arborist bit came first, and then you became first. I love that you wanted the arborist skills so that you could become a better forest campaigner. Like, that is amazing. Somebody has messaged in, activism's in your blood, Kai. You're getting lots of shout out love on the messages, which is excellent. Yeah, we're kind of almost pretty much out of time. I think we should just kind of try and end on, like, you know, where to from here. I do want to say that on the chats, if everybody has a look at this, and we'll post stuff in the events section afterwards as well on Facebook. A bunch of different organisations are on here. They're posting links to petitions. So this is great. They're posting links to their organisations as well. So shout out to the Southeast Region Conservation Alliance, Circa. Thank you, Sean, for posting those details. We've got Get Up, Erica, the Get Up petition in relation to protecting our koalas. There's issues from Southwest Sydney. Yes, the awful Appin Road, Gilead development. There are also a bunch of different, there's a range of different things. The Great Koala National Park is getting another shout out, koalapark.org.au. That's that website. So can I say with all of this, if you're interested in the, particularly the political advocacy side of koala protection, keep checking back for updates from me. We're going to have some updates. As I said, this koala, the report into koala populations in their habitat, an inquiry I'd share for New South Wales, is going to have a very hard-hitting report out in a month's time. We'll continue to lobby and advocate for a heap more laws that protect koalas put in place in New South Wales. I know there's people on here who are asking about the listing to get koalas upgraded in the threatened species listing, because of course we've lost so many. There's a lot of work being done, but we know the government hasn't taken one step since the fires that will better protect koalas yet. Can you believe it, everyone? Kai, what next for you, and what next do you think people should do for koalas? So what are you up to?
There's a few things I'm working on that, can't really go into at the moment, but yeah, that'll...
Stay tuned, people. You've got your best cooking show.
I have a koala on my shoulder, and
oh yeah, you could do like a little koala feeding, you know, here's how to feed all the little native animals show. That would actually go down quite well. Any final message for everybody listening?
I think, you know, if you really to care about koalas, it's like you've got to take care of their habitats, and like we've got to take care of climate change basically. And in looking after koalas, we will look after ourselves. And that would be my message.
Ourselves and the planet, because they're like the keystone species in terms of if they're healthy, their habitat's healthy, trees are healthy, the environment's healthy, nature's healthy, we're healthy. We have a future. Kai, you're amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Thanks heaps everybody for tuning in as well. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Heaps of great chats. Tune in for my next Couch Chat series as well. And Kai, really looking forward to seeing what you get up to next.
Thanks
Thank you, and good on you. You're a legend.
You too, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.